Welcome to Mom in Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Kat, and on this episode, I am joined by Hunter Clark Fields. She is the host of the Mindful Parenting podcast and author of the best-selling book, Raising Good Humans. And today we are talking about some great stuff that I know will be helpful to a lot of people. We talk a little bit about how we can be triggered by our own kids. We talk a little bit about how putting our own needs first really does help the kids, and ways that you can get into mindfulness, ways that you might be able to yell less, and just so much good stuff. She's been doing this work for a long time and has so many great resources and good pointers and just all around an awesome human. So let's dive in and meet Hunter. Welcome, Hunter. Thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, you've been in the game for a while, the podcasting game, and helping people, helping parents for quite a long time now. And I would love for us to start off by talking about your book, Raising Good Humans, and if you can let people know a little bit what that book is about.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I guess in the timeline, the book came well after I'd been doing the podcast for a while and desperately seeking help and from questions I had from experts. So just very helpful.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Raising good humans is basically all the practical advice I wanted. I
Mm.
wanted to know. I would get very frustrated when my daughter was little because I would listen to these great parenting coaches and they would say, this is like how you respond to your kid. And then I would be in a moment and I just couldn't because I was getting so activated. I was like
Yeah.
irritable. I was frustrated. I was all these things. She was like 1.5, 2 when this started. And it was, early. And then she's highly sensitive and she would be so
Mm.
explosive. And then I'd get a moment and I would listen to these great parenting teachers, and I'd be like, okay, that's what I'm going to say next time. That's how I'm going to respond next time. And then next time would come, and it would just be like, poosh, gone, completely out the window.
Yeah.
And everybody would start with like, and you have the first step is to pause. And I'd be like, but how? How the F are you pausing? What are you doing?
Right.
It
Great
was so
questions.
frustrating. And so I and my temper was coming up and I was
Mhm.
really ashamed because um I got my temper from my dad and he scared me, when I was
Mhm.
little, and I could see like, oh, this is a pattern that I'm perpetuating. And why am I perpetuating it? Well, because when she acts this way, like when she gets upset, my little, toddler, it feels so unacceptable to me in my
Right.
bones. It's like a deep feeling.
Yes.
And so I realized through all of this, I had to go back. I had been reading about mindfulness since I was a teenager, desperate for some relief because I'm highly sensitive.
Mm.
And
Same.
I had started a meditation practice before Maggie was born, which had kind of gone out the window when she was little. But then I realized, like, oh, all of this stuff I'd been reading for like a decade before I had a kid, this is all really applicable to this moment
Mhm.
and to, the research on the brain and mindfulness. This is all really applicable. People in the parenting world need to be talking about this because yeah, your brain is just impaired when
Right.
you're reactive. And so this information from the world of mindfulness and how to you just taking care of yourself and to become that sort of foundation has to come first,
Yeah.
realizing that. And so it's all the how do you do all that stuff in a very compassionate way, which I guess, and from a perspective of like I was terrible. I was felt like I was failing at this job and I sucked at it. and and so from that point of view of like if I can do it, here's some ways you can do it too. So I think people relate to the the tone of like you don't have to be perfect, and even if you're
Right.
naturally kind of like have a bad temper and
Right.
you're very sensitive, like you can still do this.
Absolutely. I think people are kind of craving that at this point, that like needing to hear stuff on a relatable in a relatable way. that doesn't make them feel worse about. I mean, it's so easy to feel bad when you're angry and yelling.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had to realize, I had to realize that when I felt so guilty, of course, for yelling at my daughter, for scaring her. I could see I scared her,
mm,
and I could see it was damaging our relationship. And I, but then I had to, as I looked at it, I think maybe some of the mindfulness from before kicked in a little bit because I was able to kind of get some perspective on it. And I
mhm,
realized like this is like the last thing I want. This is the
mm,
last thing from a choice. Like this is not I'm not choosing this. I don't
right,
want to do this. I
right,
actively am choosing not to do this, yet I am
right,
doing it anyway.
right.
So it's not like I'm choosing it. So that's something to really understand, I think,
Yes.
about when we get upset and we yell and we
Hmm.
lose it, is that we're not choosing it. No one is like, nobody chooses it. Nobody
Right,
wakes up and says, I'm going to just scream at, you
right.
know,
Yeah.
Asher at 2 p.m. today. No,
Right, right.
like no
Not
one
on the
does
list.
that.
Uh-huh.
So we can understanding that it gave me this perspective of like, okay, I'm not going to blame myself. This
Yeah.
is something but this is something I have to obviously take care of. I have to take
Hmm.
responsibility for. I have to work on
Hmm.
because it's hurting our relationship. Um, but just, I think it's really helpful to take it out of the way we talk about it, it's as if it's like a willpower thing, and it's
Right.
not.
Right.
It's like we can make a choice not to want to lose it at our kids, and then still lose it. So it's really it's not about what you're choosing or your willpower. It's about what you're practicing,
Yes.
and and making different choices kind of on a daily basis. And I think forgiving yourself really is important there because
Huge.
if you're hard on yourself, then it's harder to make change.
Absolutely. 100%, 1,000%. That is true. And something you said earlier is what I see a lot with clients I'm meeting with who are especially who are new parents. What you said about um, like the yelling at your child is what happened to you,
Hmm.
but it's also like I can't remember exactly how you said it. I'm trying to do it word for word, but I don't need to do that. It brings up something for you both, like in your lived experience as it's happening, as you being the parent, but also it's kicking up something from your own
Mm.
childhood about how that felt for you then too. It's
Yeah.
just, it's really hard to know that that's what's happening when that is happening. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to highlight that you said that because it is a huge thing in therapy.
Yeah. It's kind of something we really can only understand after the fact, I think, or,
Yeah.
outside of the moment when we're really upset. Yeah, I never did therapy, but I did a lot of journaling and I did a lot of artwork where I
Yeah.
did made a lot of paintings of angry pregnant beast women. Uh, so I did a lot of therapeutic painting, and trying to understand it
Hmm.
that way. But yeah, I remember feeling like hiding behind the door,
Yeah.
and my dad
Yeah.
coming down the hallway and like vowing to myself that that was absolutely I would never, never do
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And just being flummoxed because I'm normally like a person who can get things done. I'm good
Hmm.
at doing things. I can get the grades. I can do the job well and all of these things. And then here I am in this thing that is the most important thing in my life to me,
Right.
right at
Right.
all.
Right.
And there I am effing it up. Like, what's the deal? It's
Right.
very frustrating.
Right. And you feel like stuck in it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get out of that.
Yeah. You feel really stuck. And so I think like, the sort of main teacher for me of mindfulness in my life has been the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh through his
Mm.
books and being on retreat with him and things like that. And
You did?
yeah, I
Oh,
actually got to take my daughter Maggie when she was 6 years
oh,
old, and it was his last visit to the United States, and we went on a week-long retreat. It was really
amazing.
Really amazing. He took this is totally a side note, but like I give her a little notebook to like draw in to kind of keep her busy while she's like, and he would have all the children come to the front. He would do a Dharma talk for the
Mm-hmm.
children,
Mm-hmm.
and she gave him a picture of the bell that she had drawn, and he took it, and then he used the
Oh.
picture for the bell that she drew in his Dharma talk, talking about how the cloud was in the paper. It was really
Oh,
beautiful.
that's amazing.
Um,
Oh, what an experience. I'm
but
so
he talks a
happy for
lot
you.
about, yeah, yeah, it was really impactful. It was really impactful.
Mhm.
And I guess what I wanted to say is that he talks a lot about habit energy.
Mm.
And I love the way that way of thinking about it, like that we have these habit energies, that we just reproduce and we may
Mhm.
not want to. And I think that's just such a neutral, helpful way of thinking about it, that you have
You're
this
right.
habit energy from your family, from your upbringing, maybe from even further down in your genetic line, right? You have habit
Right.
energies. Like we know that now through
Right.
from the body keeps a score and all this other scientific research on that. Um, so it doesn't make sense to be blameful of ourselves, but it does say, okay, if this through trauma and repetition and things like that has been ingrained in me, right? It has
Mhm.
become a very myelinated neural network, right?
Mhm.
The things that are in our brains that come to the surface most easily are the ones that are like the very fatty superhighways in our brain where
Yeah.
our neurons can go back there very quickly. So what needs to happen if we want to counter that is that what we practice grows stronger. So we have to like make those neural networks for what we want
Mhm.
myelinated or
Mhm.
fatty or stronger,
Mhm.
right? We need to make them not like I'm in a tough moment now, I'm trying to bushwhack through the woods and do something brand new. I'm
Right.
actually, this is something I've practiced. I've practiced not reacting when my kid is freaking out. And how do you do
Mhm.
that? You practice it by imagining your kid freaking out and staying still and not
Mhm.
reacting, or you practice
Mhm.
just sitting by yourself and practicing to not be reactive at all, and not
Right.
just go from thing to thing to thing to thing, going, going,
Absolutely.
going. And that's how we practice making that space for the
Mhm.
pause. I was like on the quest for the pause for a long time. And that's one of the ways we practice the pause. The other way, by the way, is really brilliant. And it's not for me. I learned it from Oren Sofer, who's another great mindfulness teacher. And he said to like just practice pause in the non-problem zones. Like
Mhm.
your kid comes to you and all they want is like a piece of toast. And you just take a breath in, take a breath out, and then you respond.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
after you get in the car, you just pause and
Right.
breathe and
Right.
then you go, or
Right.
whatever it is in the non-problem zones.
Right. I mean, that is so useful for people in particular because it's not so complex that it's something that you couldn't do or add into your life in some way. Um, and to your point, I think what you were saying earlier is it's really hard to all of a sudden learn that new skill while you're in the middle of being triggered, or it's high stakes, or you're overstimulated at the tippy top of that overstimulation moment, to be practicing this when you are slightly more regulated or you have more access to be able to regulate yourself so that you're not only trying to practice when you're so upset that it's going to be hard to do the thing and then you're upset for not doing the thing. That can become like a really difficult cycle.
Yeah, you got to have some resources to do
Hmm.
the new thing, no matter what, because our brains always like want to take shortcuts and do autopilot. So anything new takes a lot more resources, more body budget, brain
Absolutely.
budget.
So the raising good humans is usable information. Really,
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
usable,
yeah. So the
practical.
whole first part is about that, like, and then there's the second part, which is some skillful communication. Um, and so yeah, someone recently said like, oh, so the first 88 pages of your like 160-page book is all about you and doesn't talk about your kids at all. I'm like, yes,
Right.
because that's what your kids need. I mean, the best thing in the world you can give them
Hmm.
is you,
Hmm.
steady, a steady, secure, stable base who's
Right.
relatively happy and at ease, right? Like that is the best thing you could possibly
Hmm.
give a kid is like a
Hmm.
an adult that's in their life that's
Hmm.
pretty steady and
Hmm.
relatively happy and calm.
Right. Yeah,
Better than
absolutely.
Disney.
I'm sure there's some people who could argue that, but but no, 1,000% I agree with you there. And I think in kind of today's culture, people are really grappling with this, like, do I put myself first or am I still supposed to be a martyr and everything's for the kids and don't understand that they're not separate. Um,
Mhm.
like you can support yourself and that's not the selfish thing to do. It's good for you and it's good for them.
Yeah, it's the best thing you can do for them
Right.
is to have a yeah, a happy, healthy, stable you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, yeah, when you don't get enough sleep, it's like, when do conflicts happen? Sometimes I ask people to like track if I'm doing some coaching or working with people in mindful parenting. I'm like, well, track when you're yelling. And it's like, are you tired? Are you hungry?
Hmm.
It's just like little kids. It's so funny, right? Like,
Totally.
well,
Yes,
the
it is.
kids, they mostly fight, siblings mostly fight when
Hmm.
they're tired or hungry, right?
Hmm.
People have so many questions about sibling rivalry and things like that. But actually, are the kids just tired or hungry? And then same thing for you. Are you
Hmm.
tired or hungry? Like,
Hmm.
are you taking care of yourself? If not, this probably this big reason.
Right. You don't have to go to the what typically is happening is a self-judgmental, like, why can't I? I'm such a bad parent. Like, maybe have a granola bar or like
Yes.
and regroup. Um, yeah, that's such a good point because I mean there is a lot, of course you know this, a lot of pressure on being this ideal parent to get it right all the time, and
Mhm.
it's high pressure. It's really really a lot of pressure, and I don't know if you in your work have run into this perfect person. I haven't ever. It just
No.
like we are human at the end of it.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't exist. And it would suck for your kid if you were perfect. I
Well,
mean, imagine
that
if you
is true.
you were a normal, flawed human being and you had some perfect parent and you would think, "Oh gosh, what's wrong with me? I have
Uh-huh.
all these big feelings. I get angry, I get,
Hmm.
whatever. I get all these things and my parent never exhibits any of these things. They're like a robot." That would not be cool. And plus, it would also not be cool if you could meet all of their needs every day, all the time. Like, then you would have a completely miserable to be around kid. I
Right, right.
mean, think about
That's
it. It
true.
would like you need your kid. It's that's Winnicott's good enough mother or good enough
Hmm.
parent, right? You like
Hmm.
the best parents like fail to meet their kids' needs in little ways all the time, and that's important because
Yep,
your kid needs to know that this is how life works, right? And be able to have little disappointments and deal with them.
absolutely.
Our kids also need to see us have upsetting feelings. They need to see us be angry. They need to see us be sad. They need us to see us be annoyed or frustrated and deal with it, right? Like
Right.
our best parenting is in modeling, and we need to model for them how do we take care of these feelings. So if you are just hiding those feelings from them or you're pretending not to have them, that may not actually be serving your kid. There's a line, people ask me this all the time,
Hmm.
like, because I talk about like an iMessage and sharing, when, when there are toys all over the living room, I feel frustrated, and
Hmm.
people say, but I don't want to make my kid feel responsible for my feelings. And I say, but you know what? When you are annoyed or frustrated, your kid knows that. They feel that.
Right,
We feel each other's feelings. We
right.
inter-are, right? We
Yep.
are porous human beings that are very attuned to each other's feelings. So they may not know what's going on, but they know something's up. And so if you pretend not to have those feelings, they get a sense of like, I don't trust you, right? Because they have these great
Hmm.
BS meters. So it's actually like, it's really helpful to just to be real and authentic with
Yeah.
your feelings, and then also that helps then for you to model healthy emotional regulation. Like, yeah, I'm starting to feel really frustrated right now. I feel like I could lose it. You know what? I'm gonna take a break.
Yep.
How great is that for your kids
Mhm.
to see you do
Mhm.
that? That's
Mhm.
wonderful.
Mhm.
Then they don't know they can do that.
Yeah, it's really an interesting thing that what you're talking about, that they are attuned to us and we are attuned to them, and all of the I think a lot of us has been socialized out of even acknowledging our own feelings, let alone that it's okay to share them and tell somebody else, let alone your child, that this is like a truth for you that's happening.
Yeah.
So I mean, what you're describing and the how to, it doesn't again have to be rocket science. You're just kind of narrating
Hmm.
what's going on
Yeah.
for you and helping them figure that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. It's called, Dan Siegel called this "name it to tame it," and
Hmm.
it because it works because they've actually done fMRI scans of people like in those magnetic resonance machines, and
Right.
they have them name the emotions, and it's like, oh, they can see that it turns down the temperature,
Absolutely.
calms everyone down, just
Yeah.
to acknowledge what the feelings are.
And like psychologically speaking as well, a lot of kids could also overinterpret it as them being the problem,
Mm.
as opposed to like, when kids don't have context, they often will think it's their fault.
Hmm.
So if you're saying this like, hey, this is my stuff here, then that relieves a lot of stress for them.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think that open dialogue is so important for kids. Yeah, they do interpret lots like, you come home and you're stressed and when I come home and I'm stressed, like, I'm like, ah, can't you put your backpack away? Because the backpack is annoying me, because of
Right.
the mess. And I'm like, the backpack is always there. You are
Right.
14 going on 15. Like,
Right.
couldn't we have figured this out 5, 6 years ago?
Somehow
So
no.
like, but it's like, really, it's about,
Yeah.
why are you all mad at me? Well, no, I'm not. I'm just stressed and I feel annoyed at the stuff because I'm stressed, right? So sometimes my daughters will call me out on things and be like, "What's up with you? Do you need?"
Uh-huh. They're little mirrors, if not big
Hmm.
mirrors, kids.
Absolutely.
So I want, if you can help me, help other people understand something about mindfulness. I think there's a lot of misconception about what it is and what it isn't. So if you could give like a little primer on what mindfulness is, because I think people feel like mindfulness means that they have to be, um, like without feeling also.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. It's definitely not true. Being
Okay.
without feeling. Um, Mindfulness is about putting our attention into the present moment with kindness and curiosity, right?
Mm,
Or in other words, non-judgment, curiosity.
mhm,
And that's just different from daily life in that we're often distracted, we're often way off in the future, or we're off in the past, or we're on a walk with our partner and we're thinking about the news
mhm,
or
mhm.
the government or whatever it is, right?
Right.
Um, and so mindfulness is about like, oh, I'm recognizing what's happening with us. Oh, I'm
Mhm,
lost in thought on this. I'm thinking about this thing, it's making me upset, or um, recognizing where we are and then coming back to the present. So it's not about continually being in the present. Like, I think that no one has to be the Dalai Mama.
mhm. Nice.
We're not going for enlightenment necessarily, but um,
Uh-huh.
but having the ability to come back and having the ability to recognize that we're gone. So you know, I'm oh, okay, here I am. I'm feeling my breath come in and out. I'm noticing this tree. I'm noticing my footsteps. I'm going to put my hand in my husband's hand and feel his hand. Um, I'm gonna notice the sunlight. I'm gonna kind of notice where I have been and what's going on. And it's really about self-awareness.
Mm,
So about coming into the present moment, and that piece with kindness and curiosity is so
mhm,
important.
mhm,
So without judging ourselves, and that's a practice that we, habit energy that we can develop, is that we practice not judging ourselves and saying, "Oh, I was lost in rumination, or I was lost in frustration. Here, let me come back." And sometimes it's I come back to the present and I'm feeling some feelings of frustration, or I'm feeling, oftentimes we're recording this on a Monday, and I often wake up on Monday mornings with anxiety, just because that's a real strong habit energy from my
mm,
childhood, growing up and going to school.
mhm,
And so I have to, I become aware of it. I
mm,
notice the sensations in my chest, and I practice to be mindful of those feelings, is to practice not judging it, meaning I'm just curious about it, I'm interested in it, I'm kind to it. I make space for it. I don't try to
mhm,
push it away. And I'm like, okay, these are sensations, and this is also, I'm feeling my breath. I'm noticing where I am, etc. It's kind of a meandering description, but I hope it sort of
No,
got the point
it's
across.
helpful. There's multiple description in there. I think, which is important because this, well, first of all, like mindfulness and meditation get confused, and then
Mhm.
mindful as like, what are they? Are they the same thing? Are they not? Um, but uh, there's like all this pressure to do that perfectly too, and it's like the
Oh
whole point
yeah.
is to have the non-judgmental perspective on it.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think of mindfulness as like an incredible brain hack for parents, because it just helps us be less reactive, right? It helps us to
Mhm,
bring the prefrontal cortex, which is like impulse control,
mhm,
problem solving, creativity, more online than our reactivity. And that's so important. But also, just like, you have more clarity, you recover more quickly. Like, I feel all the feelings, but I tend to not get lost in a spiral of rumination about them, because I know, oh, I'm in a spiral of rumination, and I stop it. And
mhm,
just,
mhm,
that awareness stops it, and I can then become present with what is in this new moment, and so it's so helpful to just be able to, like, pull us out of those things. So helpful to be able to be present for our kids when they have something going on, for
right.
me to say, okay, I'm going to shift my attention to you here and now, and to be able to do that. I mean, I think of it in a way like this, and we could talk about, and meditation is not mindfulness, but it is a way to practice it, and
Mhm,
is a great way to practice it for a lot of people. And it's not that hard, actually, but I think of it like this: like, as parents, we are in this culture that pushes us to, like, achieve and go and do, right? And
right.
we're in a culture of distraction, where we do the next thing and next thing, next thing, next thing.
Mhm,
And especially as women, we just, like, try getting so much stuff done.
yep.
And so we tend to be in this, like, go, go, do mode, where I'll just fit these dishes in. I'll just get that thing in. I'll just do this thing real quick. It's, only 60 seconds. Gretchen Rubin
Totally.
says I can do
Yeah.
it in 60 seconds. I'll get it done. Right. And so we're going and doing, and then we think, like, oh, and when I get to that, like, oh, like, I don't know, that family lake house, then I'm gonna just really be present. I'm gonna put it all down, and I'm gonna be with my kid, right?
Mhm,
I'm gonna go on that vacation, and then I'm gonna really be present with my kid. But first, I'm gonna get all these things done.
mhm,
And so, on a daily basis, we're just training our brains to go, do, next, 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 future,
right,
future, future.
right.
And so then we get to this vacation, we get to some beautiful lake or wherever we are,
Mhm,
and we find out, oh, we can't. You
right,
can't be present with your kid, because you have trained your brain every day to
right.
go and go and do and do. And so the thing about really being there for your kid, being present, and this is what something Thich Nhat Hanh said, to go back to him. He said, when you love someone, the best thing you can offer is your presence.
Mm,
How can you love if you are not there?
mm,
And we're just often not there so much every day, that we get to a place when we want to be there, and we can't, because our brain has been trained to do otherwise.
right.
So it really, that's why mindfulness is so essential, I think, because not only to just help us just calm the F down, but also to just be there, right? We have to practice being there a little
Yeah.
bit every day if we want to be able to have the ability, the capacity to be there in those important times.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were talking through that, I was thinking of somebody who was recently talking about going on vacation and not being able to really be there until several days in. They
Hmm.
almost had to get used to not having to do all of these things. And by that time, like a good third of their vacation time is gone.
Yeah.
And
It,
just, it must be, I mean, I imagine it's part of that same dynamic that if you are not practicing it, it doesn't come up easily. Um,
yeah, it's a common story. I mean, yeah, the thing I want for parents, for moms particularly, is I want them to just give themselves permission to have some ease in
mhm,
their everyday life
mhm,
and to not feel guilty for it because what you're doing is you're practicing to just be there for your life.
mhm,
And like what could be better for your kids than to be able to be there for them or be there for someone you love. And so to be there for someone you love, you have to be there for yourself in your own life. You have to be able to do that. You have to build that muscle to be able to do that.
absolutely, absolutely. And what do you? I know you can't give like a timeline for people. Like if somebody has never done mindfulness and like they're hearing our conversation today and thinking like, oh yeah, that would be sounds good, but it maybe feels like far off. That it's going to take forever to get there.
Mm.
What do you say to people who are looking to get into this, and from a parenting lens specifically?
Yeah, I mean, for parents, I think I I assume you have 5 minutes that you go on social media every day, right?
Hmm.
So if you have that time, you
Just
have
five. That's it.
just five,
Right,
right?
right, right. Yeah.
Right? Probably a lot more. So anyway, so if we have 5 minutes for social media, we could probably take 5 minutes to just, you know, try setting a timer for 60 seconds and just close your eyes and feel your breath come in and out, saying to yourself, breathing in as you breathe in, breathing out as you breathe out for 60 seconds, and just breathe a little deeper and slower. That's a great way to start. It's
Mhm,
like mindfulness is like, or mindfulness meditation, and you can also do it while walking. You can practice, say you do a drop off. You know what I used to
mhm,
do? My daughters were at this Montessori school that's really close to my house. It's like basically like a block away.
mhm.
And I used to literally run home because it was just 3 hours. It's like 3 hours in the morning. So
Uh-huh,
it's just,
uh-huh.
how fast that 3 hours went by? It went
Yeah,
by
yeah,
so fast. But anyway, I realized, oh, I'm like I'm not getting any more. I was like go do kind of thing. So I realized, oh, I'm like teaching this thing and I gotta practice it. So I started walking home
yeah.
slowly and mindfully. And it probably took 3 extra minutes to get home than I normally do.
Oh.
But I came home and I was calm. I felt at
Mm, mm,
ease. I just looked around me. I enjoyed the walk home. I had to force myself to do this,
mhm,
but it was really beautiful. So, like if you're walking home from like walking back to your car after drop off, try walking slowly, feeling your breath, feeling the air come in your nostrils, feeling your footsteps, just being aware of walking on earth, right?
mm, mhm,
And these little bitty things can be really effective to sort of building a habit. And then we can go from there. I mean, there's free mindfulness resources on my website, and there's like other great things to resources out there as well. But I think just like with exercise, right? We know that if we go for a
mhm.
10-minute walk, it's better than sitting on our butts all day,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So
You don't have
we
to
may
climb
not
Mount
be getting
Everest.
into the gym for like a 90-minute workout,
Uh-huh.
like throwing tires all over the place, but
Right,
we
right.
can go for that 10-minute walk. It's the same thing about training your mind and your heart
Mhm, mhm,
to be present. Like
mhm,
you may not be ready to sit down and do a 15-minute guided meditation,
mhm,
but maybe you can I have a 3-minute meditation on my website, or you can set it for 60 seconds, or you can try that slow walk home and just try it for a few months and just start to see how it feels. And then probably you'll want it to grow a little.
Absolutely. I wonder if you've run into or helped people through mm, some like I guess I don't love this word, but if they feel like an internal like stop or resistance or something that even makes them feel anxious about slowing down
Oh, yeah.
and dropping into just kind of awareness. Because I have heard that a lot from moms that I meet with, especially if they're dealing with anxiety or depression, that the idea of like just slowing down and being aware is really sometimes anxiety producing for them. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I understand that. I
Mhm.
kind of my entree to mindfulness for a long time when I was in college, right? Like I started reading about it in high school. And then when I was in college, I started running without my headphones, my Walkman at the
Mhm. Nice.
time. And
Uh-huh.
that was a big deal, right? Like I was like, I'm
Yeah,
just running and breathing. Like this is cool, right? And that can
right.
be a nice intro, is like
Mhm.
just walk without your phone
Right.
or just without earbuds. Like just go for a
Mhm.
walk without earbuds. That can be nice.
Mhm.
That's the same way like yoga practice can be really nice because then you know, you're moving. That can be a
Mhm.
really nice intro. And then that shavasana is just
Mhm.
that's just meditation. Shavasana is
Mhm.
meditation. Um, that can be a really nice way. But also, I would say um, that it can be like, I would encourage you to like, die of fidgetiness. Because it's scary, and then you could say, okay, this feels scary, and then I'm still gonna, maybe you give yourself a reward to get I'm gonna sit still for 1 minute, and I'm gonna give myself a reward of like, I don't know, some really nice high quality chocolate or something.
Mhm.
Whatever, I don't know, whatever
For
it is.
sure. Yeah.
Um, or you make it you like, I'll go on Instagram if I can get through my 3 minutes of
Mhm.
sit down, right? You
Mhm.
know, and then you do it and you're like, oh, I feel all this like anxiety. I don't want to do this. You don't like it. It's like,
Mhm.
ah.
Mhm.
And I guarantee, and you don't die, and you
Mhm.
get a little stronger, you get a little more tolerant, and then you get a
Mhm.
little used to it. It's kind of like anything like that. Like
Right.
as you practice it, and that's what Jack Cornfield used to say about fidgetiness is to let yourself die of fidgetiness.
Mhm.
and
That's great.
and you don't, of course, but
No.
you realize what's powerful about that is if you can get, and it's really brave stuff. It's really hard to do.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
very
Right.
brave work to sit with yourself. I think
Mhm.
it's very simple but very brave. But also, when you do it, um, you get to know yourself a little bit more, and you've built this muscle of like, oh, I can tolerate this feeling,
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
being here, and I'm still okay. And that's a powerful lesson if you can get yourself to that. But
Absolutely.
otherwise, just go for a walk without headphones.
Absolutely. On your podcast, and you talk about this and more when it comes to mindful parenting. Can you say a little bit about some of the types of things that you discuss there?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So we've been doing the Mindful Mama podcast since 2013, which is crazy.
That's
I used to have
amazing.
all these conversations. And yeah, still do have great conversations, lots of different people. Sometimes I do on-air coaching calls. I've been starting to do a few Q&A calls, which is fun.
Hmm.
Um, And yeah, starting to just follow everything. And I had it for a little while, it was named Mindful Parenting, and I named it, put it back to the name that it originally had, Mindful Mama, because I want it to reflect more the whole experience of being
Hmm.
a person who is a parent rather than
Hmm.
just the parenting aspect.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, amazing conversations with people like Gabor Mate has been on, and Dan Harris will be on soon, and all kinds of wonderful, wonderful teachers and people. And I just feel really lucky to be able to have these conversations.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's a wealth of knowledge and information. And when applied to this huge transition of parenting, of motherhood, I mean, it's a lot to wrap your head around into this brand new role. And even if you're into it's been, what, 14, 15 years in, there's still new stuff to be dealing with and learning about yourself as a parent. And if you have this practice of mindfulness with you, it's a tool, it's a skill, um, something that helps you manage the ever-changing landscape of parenting.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Um, I mean, I don't know where I would have been without it. I'm like, I'm so thankful for that. I mean, I started this process because I didn't want to, I could see I was effing up my relationship with my daughter
Mhm,
Maggie. She is
mhm.
about to turn 18,
No.
and um and she she said the sweetest things. I was like, that was my biggest fear, is like, I'm gonna hate my kid. We're gonna have
Mhm.
like this tumultuous relationship, or she's gonna hate me in
Right,
teen years.
right.
And she recently did, in such a like her generation way, she did a like a photo montage on Instagram of
Oh.
me and her, and then
Oh.
she said that I was uh the Lorelai to her Rory. And I was like, oh my gosh, the highest compliment could not have been paid more from a 17-year-old person. So it was
That's
like,
amazing.
this is why I did that. And
Mhm.
this is why I wanted to I had to take care of myself, was for her. This is why I
Mhm.
made her go to YMCA childcare when she was little, even though she
Mhm.
really didn't like YMCA childcare, because I needed it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and now it's come full circle, and it really paid off. That's
Um,
so far so
oh,
good.
so-
I'll let you know in 10 years. Maybe it'll all fall apart now. I don't know.
That's hilarious. But right, what a testament to just even just the idea of taking care of yourself is taking care of the relationship. So
Hmm.
people are afraid that if of this narrative of selfishness, but it's just not. And what you're talking about and what you talk about in your book and on the podcast is a great avenue for people to be able to see that they're the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's my hope. Is that when I can be a little selfish, and I can encourage other people to be a little selfish too, for the good of us all.
Right, right. I'll take that. Yell from the mountaintop, so that people hear you too. I'm sure you've had a lot of amazing feedback on your book and the podcast and your work. What are people telling you about what they get out of it?
Oh, I mean, people say some really nice things sometimes. It's really lovely. I mean, it's
Mm.
pretty amazing. The book is, I never would have expected, but it's gone around the world. It's in like 17 languages. It's like, yeah, it's pretty wild to see that people get so much out of it. And people tell me, I got to meet a woman, and she had her daughter with me. She's like, your book has been by my bedside for this whole child's existence,
Oh,
or like whatever. And it was like, she was a cool kid. It was nice to meet her. She had seemed to be pretty great. And
that's awesome.
yeah, I feel really good about it. I really want to kind of spread it to more people. Like, my goal now is, I do a mindful parenting teacher training,
Mm.
and my goal now is to like try to get it to, we're doing some pilot programs to get it to school districts and things
Awesome.
like that, so it can be kind of more
Mhm.
like one to many.
Mm.
But it is something that, yeah, you have therapists. Therapists have gone through to add to their offerings and things like that. But like to, yeah, I'd really like to see it get to like to larger groups now, because I can see the power the tools have to, these tools to take care of ourselves and then to communicate more skillfully. It just kind of helps every relationship you have.
Right, not just. for parenting, but I mean these are communication skills and tools that you can use everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, my relationship with my partner has gotten better. I'm doing better at not being a jerk to them."
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. I mean, we don't always learn it in our families of origin and for whatever reason, for all kinds of reasons, it's okay to learn it at any point. You don't have to have learned it in your early years or even when you're 30, 40, 50, whatever. You're 70, you want to figure out how to communicate better and develop some mindfulness. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. I had a grandma go through the course I did. I did mindful parenting in person in this community group, and she was taking care of her 6-year-old, and that's why she
Mhm.
went through. But at the end, she said, "Oh yeah, things are good with him. He's doing good." But she told me that she healed her relationship with her adult daughter, and I was like, "Oh
Oh,
my God."
that's a beautiful. I love it. I love that. Like healing is available at any age. It's
Yeah.
so cool.
Why would there ever be a time limit to it?
There
Never.
shouldn't. There shouldn't. But
I wish my dad would know that.
right. I hear you.
I mean, I guess I would just say, no matter what, like this morning I was like, wow, I'm like, I have like a steady partner. We're in a safe place in the world and things like that. And I have all these resources. And sometimes there are days where it's still just hard to be human, you
Hmm.
know? I mean, I think
Hmm.
we all just have that. And so I just would say that regardless of what you've learned, and, it's still okay to have days where it's really hard to be a human and to
Yeah.
just give yourself permission to be human. That's all.
Perfect. Yes. Yes. That a million times over. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for coming on today and sharing the amazing work that you do in the world. And I'm really hopeful that folks who are listening can hear this and take this in and um, check out Raising Good Humans and check out your podcast and get get a little boost, a little help along the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for having me. This has been really nice.
Great.
Nice.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And thanks for doing all your good work in the world. Please go find Hunter at mindfulmamamentor.com, which is also her Instagram handle. You can go on YouTube and look for Hunter Clark Field's Mindful Mama Mentor. You can also find more of what she offers at mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. If you know someone who could benefit from hearing what Hunter talked about today, could use the resources that she offers, please do send this episode along. It's super easy to share a podcast episode from your favorite listening platform. And I know a lot of people are looking for this type of support right now. If you're not subscribed yet to the Mom and Mind podcast on YouTube, go do that so you can watch our interview there as well. Or if you prefer listening, just make sure you are following or subscribed on your favorite listening platform. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time.